The fact that some people can't afford a $400 emergency and have to rely on debt to cover those unexpected costs is absolutely astounding. And in my opinion, an emergency fund should be a number one investment tool that everyone should have in their portfolio, in their personal lives, just to have the ease of mind and have that safety for any unexpected costs. So today I'm just going to talk about this article I saw on CNBC about the idea that many Americans can't afford a $400 emergency and actually blame debt for the reason they can't afford that. So as always, I'm a dividend growth investor. So the whole reason I am a strong believer in an emergency fund is so that if something unexpected comes up, I don't have to rely on my portfolio. I have my portfolio in the background, still working, still growing, and I don't want to have to touch it just because something happened. Whether my house floods, there's a leak, I need something, a car repair, I don't want to have to sell assets of my portfolio in order to pay for that. I want to have cash waiting on the sideline ready for those unexpected costs. And I'm not talking about unexpected costs such as going on a vacation or buying a new fancy clothes, outfit, cars. I'm not talking about spending money. I'm talking about those unexpected costs that come up in everyone's life that you just don't know when it's going to happen. So of course you can plan for certain costs and get ready for them, but I'm a strong believer in an emergency fund where you have cash sitting outside in a bank account. It could be a high interest saving account, could be anything, but sitting there, not invested, no risk of losing it, sitting there in cold hard cash or just in a saving account, waiting just in case something happens, because you know what? In life, something always happens. And that's why I was so shocked to read that many Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. The key point from this article says right here, before I go into it more in depth, that 40% of Americans would struggle to come up with $400 for an unexpected expense. And I understand people earn different wages. People have different lives. People don't make as much money. Some make more than others. But the idea of an emergency fund can be used by everyone. I know that's a controversial topic, and I understand the pros and cons of having an emergency fund and the fact that if you hold money in cash in a bank account, you're actually losing money each year to inflation. It's actually losing value, and I understand that. But for me, having my money in a high interest saving account where that can either match inflation or even slightly lose to inflation just a little bit each year, that peace of mind of knowing that if anything comes up, if I wake up in the morning and my car doesn't start, or I wake up and my toilet breaks or anything like that, that I have funds at my disposal to cover it and I don't have to rely on debt in order to pay for those expenses. So it's that really strong peace of mind that I look for, and which is why I believe in the emergency fund and why I believe it's actually a strong idea for many other people to get one, to grow one, and to maintain one throughout their lives. So the fact that it says here too that 40% cannot afford a $400 emergency. Again, I don't know how accurate this stat is. When I just read this article, that number shocked me, so I really want to touch upon it in a video. But $400 to some people may be a lot of money, and to others it may be nothing. But in general, $400 is not some crazy amount of money. I understand it could be a week's pay for some people, but in reality, it's not thousands, it's not tens of thousands, it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So as a society, people have to get smart with their money, and they have to actually stop spending all the money they make, or even some people spend more money than they even make. And the problem is, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you spend. Because if you become a smarter spender and you reduce the money you spend on unnecessary items, you can build an emergency fund over time. I'm not expecting you to start saving $200, $400, $500 a month, but start slow, become consistent at it, and then you'll have this emergency fund built up over time in order to pay these unexpected expenses. And the reason I'm such an advocate for an emergency fund is for the exact reason that I don't want to have to sell my assets, my stocks, my equities, my REITs, everything. I don't want to have to sell anything from my portfolio in order to cover the unexpected debt. Because just say for whatever reason I don't have an emergency fund, some costs come up and I have to pay something out of my pocket, such as $500, $1,000, and the market's down that week, I will actually be selling my assets. I could be potentially selling them at a loss. And if I sell assets, it reduces the value of my portfolio, which reduces the amount of money that compounds each and every month, and it reduces and slows down the growth effect of my assets. So for me, selling an asset, unless I choose to sell, like selling an asset for an unexpected cost and selling it not when I'm ready to sell it, is actually a huge and terrible drawback for me. So that's why I have all these assets, as you can see here. Some are up on the day, some are down, some I'm in the red, some I'm in the green. But if I was forced to sell any of these assets to pay an unexpected emergency, it would really hurt my portfolio, and it would really hurt my financial future, and would really hurt all my goals that I'm setting up for myself. And as you can see here, the market's down on the day of this recording. So if I had to sell it, I could actually be potentially selling assets at a loss and be forced to sell it when I shouldn't have to. So that's why, in my opinion, I believe in the emergency fund, not only to protect your investments, but a strong idea is that for the peace of mind of knowing that no matter what, you will be able to cover your bills. Look at this picture they have on here, and I think it's a great illustration to show why I believe in so strongly an emergency fund. Bills come in, unexpected bills, you go over your phone minutes, you go over your data, you have an increased cost for whatever reason, and you're not sure, your property taxes come in and they're higher than usual, and stuff like that where you are not ready for that expense, but you have to pay it. It comes up, it's part of life. You don't want to be like these people in this illustration here who are so stressed and look so frustrated and look so worried about where that money is going to come from. If you have that emergency fund set aside, and everyone has a different idea on how much your emergency fund should be. I am a believer, because I'm an investor, I don't want to have too much money tied up in an emergency fund, but I have 3 months of my expenses sitting liquid in cash in a high interest saving account. All what liquid means is that it's readily available, where it's not tied up in any assets. I don't have to wait to get it out. If I need the money today, I have access to it today. And I do 3 months because any excess money I invest in the market, because I want to grow my assets very quickly and I want to grow it over the long term. I just keep with this 3 months. For others who may be a little more risk adverse and may not want the risk of the market, or may want to minimize their risk and have a stronger peace of mind, they may have an emergency fund over time, build it up to maybe 6 months of expenses. Or some people who are, I understand this is for maybe people who might have more wealth or be a little stronger with their budget, they sometimes have a year's worth of expenses in an emergency fund sitting there, so that no matter what, God forbid anything happened, they are covered for over the next year. So that how much you want to have an emergency fund is up to you. Everyone has a unique situation, but the whole idea is that you want to have some money put away so that you will not be stressed out. You will have that peace of mind, and you will be okay if any unexpected cost comes up. So reading that's right away, it really caught my attention. I really want to bring out the importance and stress the importance, in my personal opinion, in the emergency fund and having one. I understand some people may in the comment section may have some contrary ideas to that, but in my opinion, I'm a strong believer in it, and that's something I would like to preach. As I said here, some 40% of Americans would struggle to come up with even $400 to pay an unexpected bill. Like I said earlier, man, that's just incredible to me, and it really stresses me out, and I really want to stress that you just have to make smarter spending decisions. It's not about how much money you make. If you make $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year, or $100,000 a year, no matter how much money you make, you just have to be smarter with how you spend it. Every month, go out to eat one less time. Or once a week, make a meal at home that you'd rather buy out. Or skip your coffee one day. Don't go to Starbucks. Go to the convenience store for a cheaper coffee one day. Make small little changes and use that excess money that you're saving into an emergency fund. Build up that emergency fund. Have that peace of mind where you know that if anything does come up today or tomorrow, because no one can predict the future, I will be okay. I will not have to go use credit card debt. I will not have to get a loan. I will not have to get like a prepaid check. Like, there's nothing I have to do to pay off my debt but go to the bank and use the funds that I've saved up. So this survey was conducted, as you can see here. The survey of household economics and decision making asked people how they would pay for an unforeseen $400 expense. If a respondent said they simply wouldn't be able to, or would have to borrow money, sell something, or neglect their bills to do so, they were included in the share of people whom coming up with the money would be a challenge, adding up to that alarming 40%. So this is the idea that I want to stress. You shouldn't have to sell items, sell possessions, sell assets in order to pay for unexpected expenses. That is the worst thing possible. You want to be able to keep your assets during any rough time. Unless you hit something so rough where your life's drastically going to change, then I understand you may have to make some changes and sell some things off. But if your toilet breaks, if your car gets a flat tire, or if a window in your house cracks, You shouldn't have to be selling off your items and your possessions in order to pay for that. And you shouldn't have to go into debt, seek out a loan, go into credit card debt for that. I really want to stress that if you just change your mindset a little bit and prioritize keeping a little bit of extra money aside for those expected expenses, even though you don't know when it's going to happen, you know that it is going to happen. Things are going to break in our world, and how things are made today, products are made today, they are not made to last. As throughout history, you've seen things last for 50 plus years. That's not how it works today. Things break, things need repairs, and you need to have cash set aside to pay for those. So another point of this article that really caught my attention here, it says, yet the survey of consumer finances, which asked respondents for their bank account balance, found the share of households who have less than $400 in their checking or savings account was closer to 20%. What that means is, even though 40% of people cannot afford, don't have the cash readily available to pay an unexpected debt of $400, unexpected expense of $400, they found that only 20% of the population had less than $400 in a bank account. So that extra 20%, people still said they were struggling to come up with the money. And as you can see here, one of the researchers said, we're scratching our heads to why an extra 20% of people couldn't come up with $400. And right here, they said this was their conclusion that I really enjoyed actually learning about this, was that ultimately the researchers landed on the plausible explanation for both the discrepancy and why many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That answer is debt. 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 It's a very important word. You have to understand it. You have to understand how to manage debt, what's good debt and what's bad debt. Again, some people think all debt is bad. Some people think there are different forms of good debt. That's a later discussion for a different video. But as you see here, many of the people who have $400 or more available to them likely have already earmarked that money for another obligation. In other words, the cash isn't really available to them. What that means is, so just so you get paid on a Friday and you get paid, your paycheck's $1,000. But the next Monday, you owe $500 to your car bill or for your mortgage or for rent. So even though when they did this, they asked this survey, people assumed and they said, yes, of course I have more than $400 in my bank account right now. I have $1,000. But when they were asked, could they pay for an unexpected $400 expense, they had to say, oh no, I can't. I have $1,000, but I have $800 worth of bills coming in the next week that money has to go to. So really, I only have $200 available. So I would actually have to take a loan for that. So what the word debt is in this situation, their debt, the obligations that they have to pay, that these people have to pay out each month, whether it be a utility bill, rent, a car expense, or even unnecessary expenses such as entertainment needs. Like subscriptions now are a very different way of companies, how they market, where they say just a low fee of $10 a month. And in people's heads, they think I can afford $10 a month. But over time, they don't realize that having 5, 8, 10 different subscription services actually eats up a lot of your monthly cash flow. And so even though people may have more than $400 in a bank account, they actually don't have $400 available to them to cover that unexpected expense. That money is used for something else in a different part of their lives that they need that money readily available to cover another bill. So overall, this video was just a quick video that I really want to recap the importance of an emergency fund. Coming across this article, learning that 80% of Americans cannot cover an unexpected $400 expense, seeing people like this who are stressed out because an unexpected bill comes in and worried about where the money is going to come from, I really want to stress the importance of an emergency fund and maybe motivate someone to start an emergency fund. It doesn't have to be crazy. Start slow, build it up over time, but the idea that you have to be able to start having a little extra money in the bank ready and marked for any unexpected emergencies. We all know how life is. Stuff comes up that we didn't expect. It comes at the worst times, and when it rains, it pours. Usually when one thing breaks, then another thing breaks, and so on and so forth. You really don't have to rely on selling off possessions, selling off assets, taking out a loan, going to credit card debt. You really don't want to rely on those 4 items in order to pay for these expenses. You want to be able to have cash set aside to pay for these with the money you have, not stress out, not have worry, and have that nice peace of mind so you can go to bed at night knowing if anything happens tomorrow, I will be okay. And that's all I really want to stress, is just that strong peace of mind. I have my emergency fund in a high interest saving account. 3 months of my expenses sitting there in cash. I understand it might be losing to inflation each month, but I'm okay with that because it gives me that strong peace of mind that if anything happens in my life, I will have 3 months. I can continue living the same way that I am today, and I will have that money there and ready for me. So that's it for this video, and I really want to stress that don't sell your assets for an emergency fund. Keep growing your assets day in and day out, and as always, you'll see future videos on this channel about personal finance and investing. Today, really want to share with you the importance of an emergency fund and just give you my personal opinion. Again, this is not expert advice. Go speak to a financial advisor, a licensed financial advisor, if you need unique advice for you. This is just my opinion on the situation and giving you my point of view on just the generic idea that an emergency fund is an important part of your life and you should always have one. If you liked the video, please subscribe and like it. And as always, see you next time.